They took away my right to an abortion, so I'm going to take away one of their seats. The moment I actually found out that I was pregnant was I was at the grocery store and I was on the phone with my mom and I was like, man, it smells awful in here. And she was like, what do you mean? And I was like, just the smell in here is very, very strong. And so I had this heightened sense of smell and she was, are you pregnant? I was like, I don't think so. And so I actually bought a pregnancy test while I was there, went home, took the test, and sure enough, it came back positive. It was a wave of emotion. I told my husband that night when he got home from work, and he was happy. He was excited. He picked me up and like rolled me in a circle. And our daughter, Allie, she's always wanted to be a big sister.
Probably tell by my face and the mascara on my shirt, I don't come with good news.
I was almost 20 weeks pregnant and we went in not thinking there was going to be anything other than just an average appointment. It was about 5 minutes into the ultrasound that the technician stopped. She looked at me and she was like, you know, I'm gonna have to go get your doctor. My doctor came back in and she said, there is little to no amniotic fluid surrounding the fetus right now. Both of her kidneys have formed abnormally and don't seem to be functioning properly. And she is measuring about 15 weeks, so a month behind. They diagnosed with a condition called semi-lobar holoprosencephaly. And that is a rare brain defect that only about 3% of fetuses can survive to birth. She just looked at me and my husband and was like, you know, I'm so sorry, but she's not compatible with life outside the womb. I didn't have any words. Like I felt like I was stuck in like a nightmare. She said, I'm gonna give you guys a little bit and then I'll come back and check on you. And so she walked out, and as soon as that door shut, I just like wailed. She said, well, you have two options. You can either terminate the pregnancy because of Tennessee's ban. You can't do that here. You would have to look out of state. Or you could continue your pregnancy, but you would be at risk for a miscarriage, a stillbirth, or if she did survive birth, we would have hospice care set up for her immediately after for her to pass away. And then my husband said, well, how long would she have? And like, what's the probability of her making it to birth? And she said, we don't know. But the longer that she's in your womb, the worse she's going to deteriorate and the higher risk your health is going to become. It was a lot of anger. It was a lot of sadness. It was a lot of confusion and frustration. Like, why do I have to leave my state? This is a pregnancy I want, and now it's putting my life at risk. I was pissed, to put it lightly. I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to have to schedule an abortion. I didn't want to have to leave my state. If there was a 1% chance that she would survive out of the womb, we would have attempted it. But there was no chance for her. And that was obviously proven because she passed away in utero. But it was honestly, it was traumatic. I didn't even get that chance or that opportunity to grieve my soon-to-be lost daughter. I had to spend my time calling clinics in different states and figuring out how much money it was going to cost and figuring out the logistics on how I was going to get there. I felt very small as a person and as a citizen in Tennessee. I felt like nobody in this state cared. We were looking at roughly 3 nights in New York City, round trip airfare and Ubers or taxis to and from hotel and then hotel. And so we were looking at close to like $4,000 or $5,000. And so some of my followers on TikTok were like, do you have a GoFundMe set up? We want to help you. And I was like, no, I don't. I'm trying to figure it out on my own. And I think after a couple days over that weekend, I was like, okay, I'm going to have to ask for help. So I set up a GoFundMe and the goal was met that same day. If I didn't have the platform I do, I wouldn't have been able to go. But I wanted to document it because of the simple fact that there is that financial burden that a lot of people can't get past to get healthcare. As I continued throughout the process, I was like, you know, people need to see this because it's stories like mine and stories like all of these other articles that are deemed as rare occurrences and not common enough, but they happen every single day. All of my diagnoses together may be rare, but fetal anomalies and fatal pregnancies are not. So I wanted to document it so people could see what exactly these bans are doing to women in red state. Everything post-abortion isn't as traumatic. My body's fine. I'm pretty much back to normal, whatever that is. But just this morning, somebody attacked me on TikTok saying that I'm spreading misinformation and that I'm lying about my story. I've been told that I should have died instead of Miley. which doesn't seem very pro-life to me. There's a reason women don't share their stories. And I wanted to make sure that I shared my story in such a public way that other women may or may not, but hopefully they see me and they're like, you know what? I should share my story too, because it's stories like mine that are going to get these laws back into place.
That is why I am now running for the Tennessee State House of Representatives.
I truly have never thought about running for office. Politics was not something I wanted to be involved in other than voting. It was a conversation that I had with my current representative, who is also my opponent. I wanted to implement something in Tennessee's law. I wanted to call it Miley's Law, and it would be kind of a modification that choice goes back to the parents when diagnosed with a fetal anomaly. I wanted my representative's help getting that up to the legislator. I'm like, I don't know how to write a bill. And he said he would help me. And that was back in June. And he hasn't helped me. And he pretty much told me a couple months ago that he's not going to be able to do anything until session starts back in January. And so my last text to him was, so women in Tennessee have to suffer and struggle and wait for January to get access to healthcare. And he never responded to me. I was sick of seeing women suffering. I was sick of seeing little girls suffering at the hands of men in our government. I want to get abortion access back in Tennessee. That is my goal. I don't like exceptions. I don't think you should be able to pick and choose who gets health care and when. That's not acceptable. That's inhumane. My story is the most powerful thing I have. And it's the main reason why I'm running, but it is also one of the top concerns in this country. Majority of Americans are pro-choice. These representatives are not voting in likeliness of their constituents. They're voting against what their constituents want, and it's not okay.
I felt like I was walking into a lion's den, but I figured out I'm the lion.
I want people to see me and look at me as not the woman who lost her daughter, not the woman who is running for reproductive health care, but the woman that was brave enough to not only share her story, but want to make a difference. And I hope that encourages other people now and in the future to do the same.
This is the bunny rabbit my husband and I picked to hold Miley's heartbeat, and here it is.